Interfacing, sometimes we don't really know what an interface is, but interfacing is what we usually do between moment A, moment B, location A, location B. As a matter of fact, we live in the border and we always interfacing between two countries, two languages, two different engineers, two different intelligence, etc. Interfacing plays an enormous role when we develop software, when we develop algorithms. As a matter of fact, when we develop every kind of system in life. This is the Hacker's Corner. Hi everybody, welcome back. My name is Servín. I'm a professor here at El Paso Community College, and I'm very happy that all of you have been with us for the past season. This is the Hacker's Corner. And I welcome you to the new season that we're actually talking about influences in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, but also this important role that we have between academia and the workforce. In this series that we're going to see in the next shows, in the next episodes, we're going to emphasize interesting aspects that they're not completely technical per se, but they're actually relevant for the industry and the workforce. For example, when we develop some of our studies, our pathways in computer or any kind of degree, but especially in computing, since this is what we're doing here, the possible opportunities and pathways that we can apply them in industry. So remember that we're running Hack the Border. This is the series for adversarial series for the border good. And we're actually running this new series of hackathons and also professional developments at EPCC. So I'm gonna suggest you go to the website. We're actually updating this website as we speak. That we're gonna put all this relevant information related with Hack the Border. So one of the aspects that we're gonna start talking more often, here in El Paso, we have a great need for workforce solutions, the industry solutions, and all the intelligence has been done here in the border. But also we would like to see how these are related to different industries, and especially in computer programming, computer science, cybersecurity, AI. And today we have a special guest here, Humberto Calzada, which I consider a very good friend of mine. Humberto, thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
And I know Humberto for many, many years. We did our bachelor's together at UTEP some time ago. And when we finished together the bachelor's, and then that's where it was a beautiful moment, because when we've completed both our degrees in computer science, I remember you going to a master's degree in business administration, right, an MBA. I stayed in the computer science aspect, but we always share some notes, and that's actually is a very nice moment, because after all these years, we come together, and then please tell us, how's it going?
No, absolutely. So that's right. After I finished my bachelor's in computer science, actually I went to work for probably a couple of years, and then I started my master's. And at that point, I decided that I didn't want to pursue a master's in computer science, and instead I went for the master's in business administration. That for me, that combination has worked very well. I understand it's not a combination that works for everyone, but in my case, it's definitely something that I don't regret.
I think it was a great introduction, because when I remember we were talking about all these algorithms, software engineering, you were one of the top 5 students I remember very well in our generation. I always thought it was like you're gonna be this top software engineer, that you're gonna be in those big industries, which by the way, right now you work at Google.
That's right.
Right? And Google right now, as we all know, has so many different areas, so many different sectors and different areas of interest, right? So Google is gigantic. It's one of the top industry partners around the world, not only locally, but it's around the world. So congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
Now tell us a little bit about that influence that you said about going through combining with the business, because something that we're always interested to see is this infusion, this interfacing about aspects that you talk about.
No, that definitely. One of the things that I experienced earlier in my career was just being a programmer is something that I enjoyed doing very much. I would consider that I was good, a good programmer. But I always enjoyed knowing where the requirements for what I was doing were coming from. Mm-hmm. And I mean, whenever I got a chance, I was always interested in talking to the end customer to see what they expected of the system that we were developing, right? Especially in my first job. And that's something that I truly enjoyed. Even though I like programming, I also like talking to the customer, to the person that was going to end up using the system. And that's something that pretty much I carried on doing in my career. Slowly, I phased out of software engineering. At some point in my career, I moved more into managerial roles. So I was the lead for a couple of programming teams for a few years. And pursuing that pretty much interest that I had in talking to the end user, to the customer, I eventually moved into customer support, which allowed me to continue using some of the technical skills that I had gathered earlier in my career, but in a more external facing way, right?
You mentioned the customer aspect. As a computer scientist, we're very good with the computers. We're not so good with the humans. That's why we study computer science, to get this interaction with the machine, not too much with the human. And sometimes that is the critical aspect. I like this image that we can see right here. So this image, I remember seeing this when we took software engineering at UTEP a long time ago. This is what the customer asked. This is what the software developer asked. This is what the VNV thought it was. And eventually when we submit the paperwork, right, this is what it was developed. Do you remember this image?
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I remember seeing this image. It's like, how is this possible? I mean, there's this tree, right, where they ask us to this swing across the tree. And then eventually we ended up having this God knows what, right? So what you just mentioned, Humberto, I think is kind of critical because we need what the customer really wants. The problem is that the customer cannot really necessarily talk to the programmers, to the software engineers, because they need someone who interface with them to know the technical aspect, but also have the people skills and the ability to talk to the customer in all aspects. Usually, industry partners, they call this soft skills, which for me is more essential skills, because you understand their needs, their timelines, their budget, what exactly their vision. Is this what you're doing?
Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate, and I think you're touching on several components that are critical, especially to what I do in my more recent role, and definitely communication plays a key part of all of that, right? I mean, really, when you have issues or where you don't meet those expectations, like what you were referring to, what the customer received at the end in that diagram that you were referring to, it all boils down to communication, right? Communication broke down along the process, and you ended up with something that the customer had no idea they were going to receive. Right. And that's pretty much something that I enjoy being part of, because one of the things that I need to do is make sure that whatever the partner, the customer, the external entity that is using your services, that is using your products, is looking for, needs to be clearly communicated to the software development teams. And I mean, programmers love programming, right? You just tell them, do this, and they will be more than happy to do it. But the problem is that they need some guidance. So not because you tell them to develop something, it means that the customer is going to be able to use or to work with that. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I really developed pretty much as I moved deeper into my career. And right now it's something that I enjoy doing. So being that middle person between what your external partner, customer wants, and what you are providing them as a service or product.
I remember when I teach these courses, Humberto, in my classes, I recognize students who are actually in this place when they say, I like programming, but I don't know, professor, it's cool, but at the same time, I don't think I'm gonna continue that thing. And that's usually say, you need to continue. And I always give the flexibility to the students to do whatever they want. But I also like to inform them the possibilities that they can do, because computer science is very powerful. You must agree. Because we don't only teach you to program in Java or Python or C# or any programming language. We teach you how to think, right? Think computationally speaking. Sometimes they call it computational aspect, computational thinking, adversarial thinking, which is what we're pursuing in this show. But after that thing, after they take a couple of courses, they say, okay, I kind of like programming, and they tend to forget the aspect that you just mentioned, that beautiful interfacing that you can even do that thing. And you are the vivid example that you have a background in computer science, an excellent student in computer science, a professional computer scientist, but you decide to move towards the direction to be this assistant to envision what the customer wants. Now, when you start to see that that motivation on you. You mentioned, for example, I serve for a couple of professional associations, ACM and IEEE, but you mentioned SHIP, which is the Society of Hispanics Professionals Engineers, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about that involvement that you have?
Yep. So currently I am quite involved with that organization. And one of the things that it aims to accomplish is to bring a lot of awareness to prospective students that they can always go into these engineering careers. So it's not only engineering itself, but I mean, it covers all this STEM umbrella, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So a lot of people in the Hispanic community probably doesn't think about those careers as a first option. And that's something that the organization is trying to change. So that mentality to bring more awareness and create more interest.
Like, what are the barriers?
I think sometimes we find that in those communities, they feel that they wouldn't be a good match to pursue that type of careers. And that's not true. I mean, really, those careers are for anyone that is interested, and maybe you need to get involved with different or explore different skills that you haven't in the past. But at the end of the day, it is something that anyone who is interested in going into those areas, into those fields, can do. And just because being a Hispanic or a Latino doesn't prevent you from doing that. So
you bring an important role, because some of our students, they have that thing. Sometimes they call it imposter syndrome, or they call that different kind of situation, but we also call them reality. Like, for example, many of our students here, they're not U.S. citizens or permanent residents, for example. Some students, we have students who commute back and forth every single day from Ciudad Juarez. And sometimes you say, well, I went to this job fair, professor, but they only asking for U.S. citizenship. Or they say, like, are you legal citizen, resident, or X, Y, and Z, right? And they completely discourage them in that thing. Now, would you like to talk a little bit about that? Because I think you were in that situation a long time ago.
That's something that I can completely relate, because I was one of those students. So I obviously didn't, when I started my college degree here in El Paso, I did not have any work permit. So I was here with a student visa. And you're right, I mean, the opportunities for that type of situation are a lot more limited than if you have the right work permits that you need to stay in the country, right? But what I can tell to those students is not to get discouraged. It takes a little more effort. You need to get used to getting a few rejections here and there, but eventually it's just a matter of getting your foot on the door, right? Once you get that first opportunity, even if it's not the ideal job for you, take it, make the most out of it. See what you can learn and start building your career. Probably you're going to stay there for a few years. You're going to find out what you really like, what you really don't like of the job. And then from there, you can start exploring more opportunities. The advantage, or the key thing here, is that as you gain experience, things become a lot easier. So like I said, maybe that first job is not your dream job, but it's definitely going to get you closer to what you consider your ideal job.
I agree 100%. We have had guests here who actually kind of sympathize with the same idea, because they say, when I graduate, I went to this job. It was not what I wanted, but that helped us to make connections, the networking, that helped us to find other positions. I went to this conference, I saw others. So that was usually they start to build their career based on that. And I'm very happy that you see the consistency between the other speakers and that. I think that's what happened.
No, definitely. It does require a little bit more patience, maybe. You need to lose that fear to rejection. And even if you feel that you're going to get rejected, apply for the job. Apply for the job, you never know. Maybe you don't get it that time, but once you gain a little bit more experience, you can go back and reapply, right? Mm-hmm. And at that point, you're going to have more experience. You're going to be able to show what you have been doing earlier in your career, and things will get easier.
So the fact of rejection, I'm glad that you brought this, because the rejection is normal, more normal than you think, for all the reasons. Even professionals, we have rejections in papers, conferences, for different things. But that also helps us to build competencies, dispositions. I mean, that say, you know what did I wrong, right? How can I improve? This is a good opportunity for improvement.
No, yeah, that reminds me of a phrase I once read that says that a failure is nothing more than learning a way not to do certain things. So when you fail, it doesn't mean that that's the end of it. Mm-hmm. It just means that you know how you don't need to do it.
And that's an educational process, by the way. It's a pedagogical component that we always tell the students. We have learning through mistakes. They're not mistakes, they're common mistakes, but that's the way you probably need to know in order to learn more stuff. Exactly. I like that, Humberto. Tell us a little bit about the work that you do, for example, in the community, or in the whole community that you work with, if it's possible to.
Yeah, so I can tell a little bit about the team that I work at the moment. So that the team is known internally as a partner engineering group.
Partner engineering. This is the first time I heard that. What is that?
It is not very common. I'll give you that, but it's becoming more popular. And I think that different industries are starting to see the value of having a partner engineering team. And pretty much what a partner engineering team does is it becomes the first layer of defense of your software engineering teams inside the company. So whenever we engage, and this is an external facing role. Mm-hmm. So what that means is that most of the time I'm talking to what we would normally consider customers, right? So customers that want to use your products or services, that's the type of meetings that I have throughout the week. And what you pretty much do is you provide technical guidance. So you become like a consultant within the company to allow those customers to use the product or services that you're offering. The advantage that it has for any company that has this type of teams in it is that you don't use the time of your software engineers to answer those questions. Usually software engineers, and that's where we go back to this conversation we were having earlier, that once you start your career in computer science, you need to decide what are you really looking for, right? Because if you really want to go into hardcore programming, you're going to be happy as a software engineer. And all you want is to get requirements, implement what you are building, and that's it. But maybe you are in a position similar to the one I had earlier in my career, where I was happy with programming, I enjoyed doing it, but I wanted to learn more about where these requirements were coming from. Sure. And that's pretty much the point. I mean, as a partner engineer, you require a little more of these soft skills that you were referring to earlier. And once you build those soft skills, you become pretty much first line of defense for your software engineering teams. And that way, your external customers are happy because they're getting support from someone in the company whenever they're building on top of the services or products that you sell. And at the same time, the customer is not interrupting your software development teams with questions and things that this partner engineering team can pretty much
So I can imagine in Google, for example, which they hires thousands of software engineers, they have this privilege to have this kind of team, right? Because the most valuable, well, not the most valuable, they want the software engineers to just to produce software every single minute. And they need this interface in between. Just, you know what? Don't bother them. Just as we need someone who understands the software engineers, who understand the SRS, who understand a lot of different things behind the scenes, things that the customers they will never understand. But we also need this skills person who understands also the world, the real world, applications, usability, accessibility, things like all those different elements to infuse and make this handshake. And I think it's wonderful, by the way.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, I think a lot of companies in the private sector have a partner engineering team, but they don't call it partner engineering. Maybe they just have a group of developers that like talking to partners, and that's really the partner engineering team for them, right? Yeah, yeah. So I think it becomes a bit more, I don't know, easy to identify a partner engineering team within a large company, especially we're talking about the big tech companies.
Big techs, yeah.
But really, I mean, any software company, I'm pretty sure in some capacity, they have this function, even when it's not really called partner engineer, right? Maybe they just call it the software engineer that likes talking to people, and that's what it is, right? But in a nutshell, that's pretty much what I'm doing. More recently, I enjoy doing it, and well, I'm happy there.
No, I like that, and I'm very happy to have discussed that. Now, when you were talking about these opportunities, how difficult is for this to get it for the students? Or, for example, you have the experience, and probably not only in this job that you have, but you have the experience that you've been living in Silicon Valley in the past, right? Not for this company, but for other companies, big companies in Silicon Valley. Can you tell us a little bit, like a glimpse, how is it to live in those environments? Because I always, when I tell my students, make sure you do this. Why I need this thing? Why do I need to talk to do teamwork and things like that? Well, that's how you're gonna do in Silicon Valley. I mean, all my colleagues, we have friends in common that they have gone to Microsoft, Intel, Google, Texas Instruments. I mean, you call it. I mean, all the Silicon Valley. And every time they talk to them, it's like, oh, this is a good best practice. This is what we do in the industry. Tell us a little bit about those experiences that you had in the past.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things from in particular about Silicon Valley is the number of big name companies that you find. So one of the things that is really important there is to really network. And if you're working for a company, there's a very high chance that at some point in your career, you're gonna meet someone that works either with a competitor or in a different, I don't know, another tech company in a different industry. And it becomes very interesting because it's a lot more common to find people that are working in something related to what you're doing than probably outside of those areas, right? I mean, the Bay Area is one of those places where you have this situation, but there's other geographies in the U.S. where you get the same feeling, right? You have New York City,
Seattle,
you have in Texas here, Austin is growing in that very similar way. So yeah, I mean, right there when you move to those areas, the chance of you getting to know someone that works in these large companies increases significantly.
I agree. And I have had students of mine who actually went to UTEP, get their bachelor's, only the bachelor's. Some of them, they did master's, and they would go, when they decide to move to California or to Seattle, to these big names that you mentioned, it was exactly the same behavior that you just mentioned. I mean, you were working in one of these big banks, and then they met someone from the other bank, and they say, you know what, there's this position here doing exactly what you're doing. And they start to jump around and learn new technologies, learn new stuff. But it's very interesting how the dynamics that works between software engineers. Humberto, some last thoughts that you have here that you would like to encourage our students or the community in El Paso, people from Juarez, people from who are watching us?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, if you're a student or someone that is contemplating going into a computer science field of study, it's definitely a very flexible career path that you can take. You need to enjoy certain things, like you need to enjoy learning languages, you need to enjoy programming, you need to enjoy thinking in an abstract way. But if that's something that you like, really the possibilities once you move into a professional career are endless. I mean, you can go into the healthcare sector. Right now, we're living we're at a point in time where everything uses some sort of computer system, right? And those computer systems can be as complex or as simple as you want, but the reality is that someone had to build them, right? Yeah. And right now, you do online banking, there's a computer system. You go to healthcare, your hospital shares information with other clinics as well, right? So pretty much it's very easy to get involved into those industries, and that's something that you can try. I mean, so if you are in computer science, think about what else you enjoy doing, and that's going to shape pretty much the direction that your career is going to take in the future.
We recently called those credentials of value, as a matter of fact, and those they recognize the different sectors that they actually recognize this importance of computing in all the areas, as a matter of fact, and I think you cover them very well. Humberto, thank you so much for being with us, and it's great to see you back.
No problem. Thanks a lot for inviting me.
And I want to invite everybody who go to the EPCC TV YouTube channel and watch all this inventory of episodes that we have here for you. And I want to thank everybody who has been giving all your comments, emails, calls, and letters actually who have been sent to us just to tell us about how much you like the program and suggestions about what kind of topics you want us to cover. Also, I want to invite you, everybody, to be in sync with Hack the Border, the series that we're actually running here. I want to thank everybody again. I will see you next time. Happy coding, everyone.